you. And now on to our last speaker for this thematic session, which is Pavel Zbornik, who is going to give a talk on data for R&I policy. Can data improve the transparency, coordination, and benchmarking of policies and results? Pavel is an intelligence analyst at the Directorate-General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission. Over to you, Pavel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Absolutely.
Great. So let me start my presentations with the questions you just mentioned. So can data improve the transparency and coordination and benchmarking of the policies and the results? I must admit that it's a bit of a leading questions on this kind of conference, so let me answer it. And the answer is yes, but it's very complicated to do so. And the reason is that the data tend to be scattered all around. So it's not one or few data sets you have to put together, but we are talking about very large number of data sets, and some of them might not even exist. So we are working on an initiative which try to make this task less complicated. So let me present the data for RNI policy initiative. So RNI is for research and innovations, with the aim of fostering of sharing of research and information project microdata. I would like to emphasize the microdata at the European scale, so we can help to make a better data-driven policymaking in the European research area context. Our particular interest is on focus on the competitive funding, so projects supported in the competitive funding. One of the key questions, and this is also like related to what we are being asked, is we could describe them with the three keywords like directionality, connectivity, and inclusiveness. In terms of directionality, what are the directions of the strategy in the investments? In terms of the connectivity, what are the knowledge flows? What are the collaboration networks of the actors? What is the comparability and complementarity results of these projects? Example, if we would be talking about the directionality, how much does EU invest in AI? So which is the questions I would like to now focus. So it's very simple questions, but the answer is very complicated, if especially you would like to answer it from the microdata perspective. So what we try to do, we try to make a proof of concept that the aims of the initiative and the policy objective can be answered with the already available data. So what we did is that we tried to make inventory and analysis of the data sources currently available. We were able to identify 31 sources from EU, but also not EU countries. So from our Commission perspective, it would be associated countries to the Horizon that time 2020 programs. So if we would be applying the maybe known or not known classifications, the 5-star linked data model, we can classify these 31 sources as a 4, which would be a 1-star. So the data are available on the web, but they are not that easy to get. 25 would be the 3 stars. So the data is available in non-proprietary format, sometimes even proprietary or API. And 2 of these sources could be classified as a linked open data. So this data would be in the format of knowledge graph linked to other linked open data. And when we make the analysis, we started to collect the data from these sources. So we collect the data, and then here is short overview of the process, which I guess many people would not be surprised you have to do when you collect data from the multiple sources. So you collect the data, you have to harmonize them in some sort of a common structure. Also particularly challenging is if you don't know what should be the common structure, because you also don't know what all the questions you have to address. You want to link it to the external references, so you can also maximize the use of the data, because some insights might be discovered by extending to the external data set. And then you also have to face the linguistic issues, because many of the sources would be mainly in the national language. So we translate them into English, and then comes the very big element for our initiative is that as we want to know the directionality of the RNI funding, the research and innovation funding, we have to apply machine learning classifications. So we classify the projects into certain domains in the fields of science, and then we can move to the next stage, which would be, okay, now we process it, we have certain classifications, but then we still have to resolve some data quality issues because there are plenty. And then comes the final part of visualizations, and then after visualizations, we are able to do some support to RNA policy. So the data process tend to be long and tedious, and if you look it from the effort perspective, the data visualizations, although it's very complicated thing, and we have this conference also particularly showcasing about how complicated it is to make good data visualizations, but if you don't have the data prepared for visualizations, it's very complicated to make any visualization. So from the iceberg perspective, it takes a lot of effort to prepare the data in order to be used for the perspective they need. So you have to load it, you have to process them, you have to clean them, harmonize them, link, and classify. Quite a lot of process before any use of the data can be applied. As I mentioned, we have to also link it to the external data sets, and then we found that one very useful service is that when we have a 31 data sets from different countries, we suddenly see a common issue is that there is a lack of persistent identifiers. Here is, for example, the case of the organizations. If you have a 31 organization repositories, the duplicating 31 datasets is a very tedious process. But unfortunately, there is existing a service like a Wikidata, which has a reconciliation service. And as this Wikidata have a broad coverage of the organizations, identifiers built by the community, and using their reconciliation service, we were able to use it as a broker between our internal sets we had, and also as we did in the European Commissions, we match of our participants in our registry against Wikidata, we were able to build the connections among the organizations. It's not 100% perfect. It's community-based projects are not known by high level of degree, but it provides very good results. Another element, and is very important, I already mentioned, is that for us, the directionality is very important element, and for this, we need to know the fields or the domains where the research takes place. So for this, we use the Fields of Research and Development Classification, also called FOR, developed by OECD, and with the great help from the colleagues from Publications Office, which are developing and maintaining EuroCyvox taxonomy, which is based on this FOR classifications for taxonomy, and also their experimentation with natural language processing. We were able to classify all of the projects we process with these classifications. So you can find the classifications on the Publications Office websites, but also if you're interested, or the colleagues having a virtual booth, I think it's called Cordis, you can discuss with them to figure out more. So with these classifications, we were able to define the directionality. And this can lead me to the answer to the questions I posed at the beginning. So how much does EU invest in AI? I am not able to answer how much, but I can say in the projects we processed, we were able to identify about 12,000 projects which were related to the artificial intelligence domain. And this was by going through the EuroCyvox taxonomy, which is hierarchical structure. And then on the third level, we were able to identify the level 3 related to artificial intelligence. These are the keywords of these projects related to the artificial intelligence. The size is related to the number of appearances. And then we can also see the time evolutions from how many projects were funded by a source in the certain period of time. So we can see the increase in recent years, but this can also be related to the sources contain the information from the recent years.
Pavel, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It's Lisa here back in the studio. I've been asked if you could wrap up your talk early. I'm so sorry about this because we have one speaker at the end of the day who needs to leave absolutely on time. I'm sorry, I was told the other sessions were running late, but in fact, they're not. So I had a bit of misinformation here in my data sets. But if you could just bring your talk to a close, we'd be ever so much grateful.
Okay, I have 2 more slides. So
Perfect.
We could identify the collaborative networks in these projects, and then I can go to the overall overview. So at the end, we were able to process close to 1.2 million projects from about 200 funders. So this is the result of our proof of concept. Challenges I already mentioned, but I would like to highlight the main one, which is the data scope and availability. So we are able to solve the technical issues, but we are not able to solve the problems if the data doesn't exist. So the element of availability is very pertinent. And I would like to conclude with our next steps. So the initiative is still at the beginning, and we are very much open for collaborations, and we are willing to co-create this initiative with the member state representative, but also with the society around. And we would like to publish the data later on and also visualize it. So this would be all from my side.
Pavel, thank you so much, and apologies for interrupting you when you only had 2 slides left. Wonderful talk, and of course, anybody can get in touch with you online. I'm sure you've got all sorts of various methods to be got in touch with, but here today and tomorrow you can use Swapcard to get in touch with Pavel and ask him your questions directly.